Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
Welcome to it, this Thursday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Big news from the NFL that we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But Bruce Beck from NBC4 New York, their longtime sports director there, who has covered New York sports forever, is going to be our guest on the show. I actually talked to him, full disclosure, right after the news broke on late Wednesday night. I was able to get Bruce Beck to join me to talk about John Harbaugh coming to the New York Giants. We'll have that conversation coming up in about 20 minutes. Sam Yarnell will weigh in with his thoughts as he does each and every day. Be curious to see what he has to say about this story as well. Also, a lot of college basketball news to get to. There was a huge slate of games last night and a bunch of upsets in the top 25. Sam Yarnell and I will break that down, talk about the odds for the national championship and where those sit right now as well. NBA, you had a couple of notable ankle sprains in the league last night to get to. Baseball, there are signings, trades. We haven't done much on baseball really here over the last several days. We'll get to that and get you caught up on what's going on there. A couple of notable free agents still sitting out there, too, to talk about. But we start things out, as we always do, with the big story. And the big story today is John Harbaugh. If you haven't heard by now, you've been sleeping in a cave. John Harbaugh to be the next head coach of the New York Giants. They are still working out and finalizing details. It is not official yet, but it's getting closer. 5 years, $100 million is what is being reported as it relates to a contract and what that will look like. And the biggest question I had, and I brought this up when talking with Bruce Beck, and you'll hear it coming up a little later on, not to scoop my own interview, is what happens with assistant coaches? That's the big question for me. Because ultimately, who you bring with you matters. Go and look at the most successful teams in the league right now. You talk about Denver, you're talking about Vance Joseph. When you had Detroit in their successful years, even though they didn't win a Super Bowl, Ben Johnson, having those assistants that everybody covets is very important. Robert Saleh with the Niners out in San Francisco, coming back there to be their defensive coordinator after being disposed of by the Jets. Having the right assistants matters. And the word today is that Todd Monken is going to be joining John Harbaugh. And that's always been the plan, that they come as a package deal. And as excited as I am about the prospect of John Harbaugh coaching the New York Giants, I'm not as excited when I hear Todd Monken's coming with him. Because this is the same regime that as a group failed in Baltimore with a multiple-time winning MVP in Lamar Jackson. So I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade here. I'm not trying to, be down on this deal. The Giants are getting the best available head coach, the one that everybody wants, that, 8 other teams wanted, or 7 other teams wanted. So to me, I'm a little leery about what's going on here. A little leery about what's transpired here with the fact that Monken's coming along. I would have liked to have seen, Mike McDaniel, who, whatever you think of him as a head coach, is a guy that obviously carries a lot of gravitas from an offensive standpoint. But instead, you're getting the pairing of Monken and John Harbaugh. But look, if you're a Giants fan, and, you might be a little upset about the fact that this team didn't wind up with the top overall pick in the draft, I totally get it. I think they screwed up the final 2 weeks of the season royally by winning both games. But you got the 5th pick in the draft, and you've got the coach that everybody wants on this free agent market. One more thing I want to get to, and it's this. Great story. If you get a chance, I don't think we do enough to promote great journalism. in sports and in news. And there is a fantastic piece right now available on The Athletic. I think Mike DeFabo is the author of the article. And if I said his name wrong, I apologize. But go and check out this piece he did, which chronicles the final day of Mike Tomlin as the head coach of the Steelers. And it really gives you some insight into just how beloved a figure he was in that locker room for this team. And it recounts basically the final meeting that he had with the team where he told them that he was stepping down as the head coach, with players sobbing, players crying, Aaron Rodgers crying, how each player walked out of the room and Mike Tomlin stood at the door to the locker room or the meeting room, and each player made it a point to stop and hug him, shake his hand, had a word with him. And in the case of Aaron Rodgers, hearing this anecdote about Aaron Rodgers going up to Mike Tomlin and uttering the words, I'm sorry, multiple times, it is a very telling piece on just how shocked guys within that locker room and that organization were that Mike Tomlin decided to step down. And you get the sense this is a decision he's at peace with, and that he really did wanted to wind up leaving on his own terms. That he wasn't pushed out, but that he just decided now was the time. And who knows, maybe he was fed up with a fan base that was yelling, fire Mike Tomlin. I have a friend in Connecticut, my home state, that I used to run into all the time when I lived back there. And this was years ago. This guy constantly used to say they need to fire Mike Tomlin. And that was 5 or 6 years ago. And this is the biggest diehard Steelers fan you will ever meet, who used to sit there and say, oh, they got to fire Mike Tomlin. They got to fire Mike Tomlin. So I can understand why a guy like Mike Tomlin, who brought a Super Bowl to that organization, who never had a losing season in 19 years, could just say, okay, you want me gone? Good luck with what's coming next. As for what's coming next, we don't know what that is yet. And that's something Sam Yarnell and I will discuss coming up here in a couple of minutes after we talk about the news of John Harbaugh going to the New York Giants. What is the next domino to fall in the free agent coaching pool for the NFL? Sam Yarnell and I will discuss that. Bruce Beck coming up later on from NBC4 New York to talk about the Harbaugh move to the Giants as well. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. Why am I smiling? Because the Giants got their man. But on the inside, I'm a little concerned. Sam Yarnell gets to weigh in for the first time on the show on the news that John Harbaugh is expected to become the New York Giants' next head coach. They're talking about 5 years, $100 million. Sam Yarnell, making him one of the highest paid coaches in football. I expressed this in the big story, and I'll say it now. I am not thrilled that Todd Monken is coming with him. You know, because, all right, fine, you're bringing in John Harbaugh, you're bringing in, you know, as I talked about last night with Bruce Beck, and our audience will get to hear it coming up in 10 minutes. The former, or I should say the current sports director at New York, NBC4 New York, who's been around this team forever, said, you know, you're bringing an adult into the room. You're bringing in, you know, a real presence, somebody that commands a presence. And my biggest concern when I heard about this hire was who is he bringing with him? I wanted to see something more than bringing in the same regime that just failed in Baltimore. I wanted to see something other than that. But I want to get your overall thoughts first on the news.
Yeah, Jason, first of all, not surprising, right? This is, you know, a job in the Giants job that when all of these firings were happening, I talked about on this very show as being, in my eyes at least, the most potentially coveted job. I know everyone's so head over heels with the Atlanta job and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, there's more proven talent in New York right now. The fact of the matter is, on both sides of the ball, there's more proven talent and more young control in New York. It is a better coaching job. So when John Harbaugh, in my opinion, as I again stated on the show, erroneously somehow became the most coveted head coaching candidate in this cycle, it's not a surprise that he lands at, again, what I thought was the best job. Now, when we get into the Giants side of this, I do think hiring John Harbaugh is a head scratcher. You and I talked about this the other day, right? John Harbaugh, I'm sorry, is a glorified Mike McCarthy. It's all he is. And the Giants passed up on Mike McCarthy. We just saw, as you just alluded to, right? We just saw what John Harbaugh does with a dynamic offense that has multiple weapons. It doesn't go well. So I don't know why the Giants are so entrusted in him to give him a 5-year contract and make him one of the highest paid coaches in the National Football League, Jason. It is a head scratcher. It's not something that right now I can totally get behind.
Yeah. I mean, look, if he's considered the best available coach on the free agent market, which he is, rightly or wrongly, because Mike Tomlin's not going to be the head coach, not going to coach next year, it sounds like. That's what they're saying. No,
I know, but I'm saying, like, even without Mike Tomlin, I think, you know, in the conversation, as two of us who are realists about John Harbaugh, I'd put Kevin Stefanski up there in front of him, right? There are other guys.
It's a lot harder
Mike
to sell,
McDaniel.
but again, you know, optics play into this, and it's a lot harder to sell Kevin Stefanski to your organization's fan base, considering what's happened in Cleveland the last 2 years. It's a lot harder to make that palatable for your fan base, and that does play into this. The Giants are going to be able to tell their fan base, we did everything we could. We threw the bag at the best available head coach. Look, I made the argument on yesterday's show. I think Mike McCarthy's been getting short shrift this whole time, you know, as we sort of go through this free agency coaching cycle. And somebody's going to land him in this offseason, I suspect, and they're going to get a really good head coach. I just hope it's in the right spot, the right team. I am interested to see how he plays with Jaxson Dart, and that instant credibility he's going to bring into the room. It'll be fascinating to see who winds up being the defensive coordinator now that we're hearing Todd Monken's going to be the offensive coordinator. And look, as a Giants fan, they went and got the best available guy. So
right,
that's
I'll say this.
Yeah,
I'll say
real
this
quick.
as the pro Giants minute, right? Because I am the one who said, you know, right when on Black Monday, the Giants are the team I'd put money on to win the next Super Bowl right now if you made me. I think that the ceiling here for Harbaugh is, and this is a great ceiling to have, he could be what Tom Coughlin was to the Giants.
That's exactly the argument I just made. That's exactly what I just said to Bruce Beck. I don't know if I said it on air or off air. I said it's the second chapter, the same way Coughlin. I know exactly where you're going with this. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yes.
He could be the same thing that Tom Coughlin was, right? You think about it, young quarterback who they want to turn into the franchise guy. Mm-hmm. The ceiling is Tom Coughlin. We've seen this before.
Yes, absolutely. What's the next domino to fall? Because this was what every team was waiting for. Because if you were all in on Harbaugh and now you don't get him, where are you going if you're the Dolphins? Where are you going if you're the Steelers? Where are you going if you're the Browns? Obviously Atlanta, Arizona, the Raiders. There are still a ton of coaching vacancies, Tennessee, that are all sitting out there. And in this game of musical chairs, is the next guy that everybody's going after McCarthy? Is it Stefanski? Is it Vance Joseph? Is it Arthur Smith? I don't know. I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on that, because I think if you're Atlanta, I love Mike McCarthy to Atlanta right now.
Yeah, you know, I don't hate it, but I think that your question, right, the answer to it is it's franchise by franchise, right? Because like with Atlanta, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they went out and got Mike McCarthy. I also wouldn't be surprised if they just hired Kevin Stefanski, because they want to get one of the next best coaches available in this coaching cycle, as we saw the last time when they hired Raheem Morris, right? What I'll say with Pittsburgh is they're probably going to be the last team to hire a head coach. They're probably going to hire a guy who you've never heard of before, who I've never heard of before. It's probably going to be a guy who no one was considering to be the head coach, because that's exactly what they did 20 some odd years ago when they had to hire Mike Tomlin. If you remember correctly, Mike Tomlin was not supposed to get that job until like the 11th hour of the day before they signed the contract, when Mike Tomlin became the favorite. So Pittsburgh's going to operate very uniquely. And then, with a team like the Browns, Jason, which I think is, the consensus at least second worst job. A lot of people would say it's the worst job with the Deshaun Watson contract still there. They're just going to have to wait and see what's left, because no one's going to sign with them early.
I wonder if any of these teams have called Steve Sarkisian. I wonder if anybody's trying to convince him to potentially, give up on the idea of staying at Texas, and if he would take a run at any of these teams, if it was the right one, if Sark would come out and play.
Well, you mentioned college coaches. Is Marcus Freeman not the most Steelers coach ever?
Of course he is. Of course he is. But they keep insisting that that's not going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see what winds up happening. Bruce Beck from NBC4 New York on the Giants' hire of John Harbaugh. Next. Welcome back to the show. When the news broke on late Wednesday night of John Harbaugh being hired by the New York Giants, that was in the works, I decided to go grab my friend Bruce Beck, who does a terrific job at NBC4 New York, longtime sports director there. He's covered New York sports forever. So he joined us late Wednesday night. I want to give you some of that conversation now. And I asked him flat out what this move means for the Giants.
They needed this coach in the worst way. This has been a dismal 10-year stretch. I checked the numbers, 55, 99, and 1. You talk about 1 playoffs in the last 9 seasons, 7 10-loss seasons in the last 9. I mean, this is the time to turn things around. There's hope. And I think that there's only one guy. I think Harbaugh is the guy that can make this happen. And the Giants fans will go crazy.
What does it say about where the Giants are positioned vis-a-vis, where they are picking in this draft? I know they don't have another pick in the first couple rounds. They might be able to trade. Where they are cap space-wise, I think they've got about $21 million in cap space for this offseason, a lot more next offseason. What does it say about where the Giants are positioned that Harbaugh chose them ultimately?
Jason, I think it's all about one guy, Jaxson Dart. In this league, you need a coach and you need a quarterback. The Giants need a coach. They think they have the franchise quarterback. We still have to find out if he can learn how to slide, because he's one hit away from missing a lot of games, and he hasn't really learned that yet. But I truly believe that they are positioned going forward with Cam Scattermoo coming back. You've got Malik Neighbors coming back. You've got Abdul Carter, who got better later in the year when he started to learn what it means to be a professional. You've got Dexter Lawrence still there. So there's a lot of pieces. Brian Burns. And I think if you look at this roster, it's young with their key people, and there's enough other components at this point that I think that for a coach who just got fired, he just hit the jackpot in terms of what was out there. And I think the Giants have the most possibility. Doesn't mean they're going to win right away, but for the first time in years, there is hope. And you're right, the 5th pick, not as good as the 1st pick or the 2nd pick, but you can get a quality player and you can still trade down. And it's not about getting the quarterback. They didn't need a quarterback here. They needed a coach. And that's the most important thing for the Giants.
Speaking of coaching, and I brought this up in the big story to start the show, I think it's just as important as who he's bringing in as with him as assistants. Who's he bringing in as his offensive coordinator? Who's he bringing in? Because when you talk about all the best teams in the league right now, when you talk about the Niners, you're talking about Robert Saleh, which is crazy to think about, especially if you're a New York sports fan, considering the lack of success he had with the Jets. If you're talking about the Broncos, you're talking about Vance Joseph and what he's done. Ben Johnson when he was in Detroit with the Lions, and then he became a head coach. I think it's just as important who he is bringing with him And that's the more interesting conversation that I'm fascinated to see is, does a Mike McDaniels come, along with him because he's available and I don't know if he's going to get a head coaching gig in this cycle. That's what I'm fascinated to see, Bruce.
I mean, I think, Jason, when you talk around the league, that is a very pertinent question. But in this situation, it's about the culture. It's about changing the losing culture. It's about establishing discipline. It's about not letting Abdul Carter, fall asleep in meetings. It's about getting this franchise back. When Tom Coughlin walked out that room, there hasn't been a real pro as a head coach since. And I think that's what they need. I think even Mike Kafka could get by if he had to as an offensive coordinator. He wouldn't be my first choice, but I think that's less important in this case than it would be with other teams around the league. It would be nice to get an offensive-minded coach that comes in that can deal with Jaxson Dart, but John Harbaugh will find somebody, and I think they'll do just fine. I don't think it's as important as it would be if you were hiring in Atlanta right now or in Miami or in Tennessee. That's where I think the coordinator thing might jump, because I've seen the disaster this has been for so many years, and they need somebody at the top.
Ownership matters too. The Maras, and the leadership that they have sort of brought for all these years. And it feels like the Giants still had enough cachet, despite a decade of losing, essentially, Bruce. It says a lot that a team that has struggled as much as they have for the last decade were still able to reel in this guy.
I mean, they're a legacy franchise, although they're a mom-and-pop franchise, which was actually purchased for $500. And now they're worth $10 billion. I mean, this still is John Mara. He's battling cancer nobly. Steve Tisch. There is a lot of family when you talk about the Mara group that's still within the organization, including Chris Mara. I truly believe that this is a franchise that somehow can get back on the track, although it felt like they couldn't for so many years. And I think you're totally right. I honestly think that it comes down to where would John Harbaugh like to coach? And think about this, Jason. About a week ago, when he was let go by the Ravens, he probably was really down. Like, what the heck? After all these years, Steve's calling me and telling me that I'm fired? You know what? All of a sudden, he became a 63-year-old free agent. In a market where there are 8 or 9 teams looking for coaches, it was like the perfect storm. And it's great to have a rebirth, a renaissance, starting all over. And can you think of a better place to do it than in New York? Because if you win, you will be celebrated. You will somehow go up the Canyon of Heroes if you ever get a Super Bowl trophy. So I think it's it's a no-lose situation. He's not coming into a franchise which has been good lately. If he wins 7 games, he'll be a hero.
And I'll tell you, it's kind of interesting, and close on this point. Tom Coughlin, his first chapter in the NFL was Jacksonville. And he had success there. They didn't win a Super Bowl, but he had success there. And that next chapter for him, after years in Jacksonville, was the Giants job. And we saw how that turned out. There's kind of some parallels there to the way that John Harbaugh now, later in his career, but his second chapter is the Giants.
I mean, I think you're looking at one of the most successful coaches in the NFL over the past 20 years, and now he's pivoting, not because he wanted to, but now that it's been done for him, I think it's a good match.
Bruce Beck, NBC4 New York, I appreciate it. Late on a Wednesday night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for being with us. Not words I utter often during the week on the show, because I'm a bad host who doesn't do a ton of regular season men's college basketball, because it all just feels like an exhibition to me until we get to March Madness. But Sam Yarnell, we had all sorts of upsets in the top 25 last night in men's college hoops. There's still a few undefeated teams left, though. much to my surprise. It's kind of like, wow, what's going on there? Whole bunch of upsets. Ole Miss beat Georgia last night, 97-95 in overtime. 21st ranked Bulldogs falling. You had Vanderbilt losing for the first time. Vanderbilt was undefeated going into last night. Somebody, what is going on here? I don't know. Stanford beat North Carolina last night. Unranked Stanford, the Cardinal, beat UNC last night, 95-90. Michigan bounced back with a good win after suffering their first loss of the season. Arizona held off Bobby Hurley and Arizona State last night. Bobby Hurley looks possessed on the sideline most nights, by the way. That man needs some anger management classes. I mean, we like to talk about Dan Hurley. His brother Bobby needs some anger management classes, I just want to say. So a whole bunch of upsets in college hoops last night, Sam. I look, maybe you've been paying more attention to college basketball on the med side than I have. I know more about what Audie Crooks is doing at Iowa State right now than I do what's going on in men's college hoops these days.
It has been, an interesting, men's college basketball season, Jason. I have not been paying enough attention to the women's side of everything. But on the men's side, we have a great season. 3 undefeated teams remain, as you alluded to. It's Arizona, Nebraska, and there's a weird one in there. Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio is the last one. Those are the 3 undefeated teams remaining.
Iowa State. Iowa State, Arizona.
State is still undefeated?
Yeah, Iowa State.
Iowa State's 16-1. They're 16-1.
You sure it says 16-0 on my thing I'm looking at here?
Iowa State lost their most recent game to Kansas. Kansas was a dog. It was in Allen Fieldhouse. A lot of public money came in on Kansas at the end.
Oh, okay.
They won it by 21 points. But yeah, so the three undefeated teams remaining, you have Nebraska, Arizona, and Miami of Ohio. And let me tell you, we talked about it very early on in the season, like maybe even opening night. This Arizona team is incredible. And the freshman Koa Pete, who was not on a lot of preseason radars, has come on so strongly for them. It has been great to see this Arizona team this year. Nebraska, I mean, how can you not be happy about Nebraska basketball finally being back? Nebraska ball being good once again. It's so good to see this school in Nebraska finally having athletic hope again. We talked about it with Jabba Chamberlain months ago, right, Jason. For so long, this school, these people in Nebraska had nothing to root for. They had moved to the Big Ten and the athletics department had failed them. They finally built it back up. They've got a solid football team. They're coming off of a decent football season, and this basketball team is the real deal. I have been very impressed with Nebraska. I'm not going to lie. I have not watched a minute of Miami, Ohio basketball, but credit to them for being undefeated. Sure. And the MAC will be maybe a 2-bid league this year.
There you go. If you're talking about the national championship, by the way, over on FanDuel Sportsbook right now, Michigan is your favorite to win it all at plus 440, Arizona at plus 550, Iowa State at 12-1, along with Houston. You can get UConn at 12-1 right now. I would take that in a heartbeat. You mentioned Nebraska, by the way. They're 40-1 to win it all. So I just wanted to put that out. There's breaking news that I want to get to, Sam, that actually broke during the time we started doing the show today. And I'm going to read basically word for word this story. So I want to make sure I get the facts right. David Perdue over at ESPN reporting on it. 20 men charged in a point-shaving scheme involving more than 39 college basketball players on more than 17 NCAA Division I teams, leading to more than 29 games being fixed, according to a federal indictment unsealed Thursday in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. 15 of the defendants played college basketball in the 23-24 or 24-25 seasons, according to the indictment. This is not good, Sam. This is what we all cringe, and we all kind of had a feeling that more of this stuff might be coming. When we've seen some of these stories about the NBA, and now we're seeing it in college basketball. And again, we're literally just getting a whiff of this right now as we sit here and do the show.
This is crazy.
There's going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot more information that obviously comes out on it. But it kind of falls in line a little bit with what we were just talking about off air with the NCAA trying to convince the CFTC to stop trading on NCAA events or NCAA basketball, I believe. That story coming out. Trying to get prediction markets out of the NCAA business. So go ahead, Sam, here quickly.
This is crazy. So 2 of these 20 people are also named in that indictment that in the Eastern District of New York from months ago that we talked about that has to do with the NBA and Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups. So 2 people are also defendants in that. However, what it seems like it is intervening with players at lower level Division I schools, fixing their games, and then it goes beyond that because, or maybe it started before that, they were also fixing Chinese basketball games and betting on them from America. This is going to get very, very interesting over the course of the next couple of months. Yeah, that's a wild one.
We're coming back. There is news from baseball to get to that we have ignored over the first couple of days of this week. We'll get to it next. Odds and Ends wraps it up 10 minutes from now. You won't want to miss that. Stuff's been going on in baseball this week, Sam Yarnell. There's still free agents out there, guys signing, trades, all that good stuff. Hey, the Yankees made a trade. Got Ryan Weathers from the Marlins for like 7,000 players. Who knew Ryan Weathers was worth like 2 top 20 pipeline prospects? I'm so over the Yankees right now. I really am. It's just going to be a miserable season. They might not even be a playoff team this year. I'm just saying. What? Go. You gonna talk me off the ledge?
No, on the Ryan Weathers move. I won't talk you off the ledge. You know how I feel about the New York baseball teams, plural. However,
the Mets are doing things at least.
Whatever. Get to that in a second. The Ryan Weathers thing is actually like exactly what the Yankees need. Like as much as, and I saw this living where I live, tons of Yankees fans around me. They all seemed like, oh, who's this guy? Well, yeah, you've never heard of him because it's not his fault. He's always been good on a team that wasn't. Ryan Weathers is a guy who the Yankees are going to be able to use in multiple different roles. He is a guy who's familiar and successful as a starter. He's also been successful in every relief role all the way to closer. He has saves under his belt, right? He's a lefty. The Yankees don't have a ton of those. He is exactly what the New York baseball team needed to add to their roster right now, Jason. However, like you said, they aren't doing anything in this offseason, and it's starting to get concerning.
No, and you know what? How many times do we say it's the offense? It's that they cannot score enough, and they don't have timely hitting, and they don't have a roster that's put together that's meant to string together hits and score runs that way. I don't even want to talk about it. I already spent more time on it.
That brings an interesting question to my mind, though, which I would love to ask you as a Yankees fan.
Yeah.
Because all those years ago, and we always talk about it in hypotheticals, but the Arson Judge to the Giants thing, right? If Aaron Judge went to the San Francisco Giants, with as good as the Los Angeles Dodgers are, do we really think that he would have won a World Series by now? I don't know.
No. I don't know that. I wonder how the whole. I just wonder how the whole direction of the Yankees franchise would have changed had that move actually wound up happening. Because you would have had to build it.
The Yankees might have won a World Series by now.
Well, I don't know. But anyway, Ranger Suarez to the Red Sox. That rotation is sick. They've got more arms than they know what to do with. And I know you can never have enough pitching. Guys get hurt. Somebody will inevitably grab their elbow during spring training and like the third start. But I mean, kudos to the Red Sox. They are battling. They didn't get to keep Bregman, but they did a good thing getting Suarez in there.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's a guy, what people don't talk about enough, especially with like the first 2 months of the season in Boston, is you really have to, as a pitcher, be accustomed to pitching in very cold weather. And that's something that Ranger Suarez has shown you over the past couple of seasons in Philadelphia, having strong starts and having good postseasons, right? He's been a very good postseason pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. He's a guy who can pitch in cold weather. It's important for the Red Sox to stockpile guys like that instead of going out and getting guys from, southern teams that end up hurting themselves, as we've seen also happen with this Red Sox rotation.
Yeah. Nolan Arenado a couple of days ago went to the Diamondbacks. They make a move for him. And, it's obviously part of the writing on the wall in terms of what's going on in St. Louis with them trying to sort of rebuild things there. But you know what? Kudos. You take a flyer on him if you're Arizona. You think maybe you can catch lightning in a bottle with a 34-year-old. He had a bad year last year. But you think, new location, new spot, contender, warm weather, all of that maybe Nolan Arenado can catch lightning in a bottle for a year at 34.
Yeah, on the St. Louis side of things, this is what would inevitably happen, right? This is the Heim Bloom era. This is how he begins when he builds these massive championship winning teams, is you got to tear it all down to the studs. And that's unfortunately what he's doing. And it may really be unfortunate to be a Cardinals fan this season, but it shouldn't take too long for them to be all the way back. They've got some good players in the pipeline. On the Arenado thing, this is what the Diamondbacks have the propensity to do. It's exactly what they did with Geno Suarez.
Yep.
Who knows if they can do it again? If I trust any team in the major leagues, it's certainly that one.
Yeah, and you could always trade him at the deadline if you're out of contention, and go sell him to a contender and get some prospects in return. It's a brilliant move. Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette, Sam Yarnell. Both still sitting out there. The Mets have reportedly offered Kyle Tucker a deal for $50 million in annual value. Average annual value. I suspect that it's being leaked out in terms of what they're offering him because they're not going to get him. It sounds like Toronto is very much in the mix when it comes to Kyle Tucker. And boy, all of a sudden, Toronto, the place to be.
Yeah, and I mean, credit to Toronto. They've turned into, after when they had that contract thing with Vladdy a couple years ago, we thought this could be the end of relevance for the Toronto Blue Jays. They were at a fork in the road, and they certainly chose the right direction, Jason. Now people want to go there. My feeling about the leaking of those numbers, somebody wanted to get those numbers out so they could get the Blue Jays to go one rung above whatever that was. I'll say on the Bichette thing, feels at this point like he's going to Chicago, and it also feels like Matt Shaw is out of Chicago, but that's good because they're going to be able to bolster that pitching staff by trading such a highly touted prospect.
I just thought that Nico Horner could be out in Chicago as well, and I like Nico Horner. I like Nico Horner. Whoever gets him is getting a good player. And he's going to wind up somewhere.
It's between Shaw and Horner, though. And Horner, you're right. He's too valuable for them to give up. His bat is too good.
I would like to think so, but I've seen a lot that suggests he could be gone. All right, we've got one more segment left. That is Odds and Ends. We'll give it to you next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. It's Thursday already. On Friday's show, Robert Littall will be here, the founder of Black Sports Online. He sat in for Sam yesterday. He'll be here tomorrow. Talk about some of the top stories of the week. I saved the Lynn Jones story for him. The story from the weekend with Lynn Jones asking she didn't ask a question of Liam Cohen. She just basically said how much she loves Liam Cohen and offered her support for him. Sam Yarnell. Why are you making faces? Come on.
Listen, I'll say this. I think I've listened to I've read a lot of different people's opinions and heard just about freaking everybody talk about this 19-second interaction.
I agree.
And I'm not saying that, I've come around on it. I'm going to say that, it was, the best thing in the world and everyone should do this and we should make it more popular. I think Scott Van Pelt put it best, right? Like, if you are, I'm speaking to my companions in media here. If you are one of these people who is still making a freaking big deal about this 5 days removed from it happening. I find something better to do. Find something more interesting to talk about. It was an interesting moment, but now I see these former Sports Center anchors, former guests of the show, we won't name names, going on days-long Twitter tirades of like quote tweeting current Sports Center anchors. It's like, dude, you used to work there. What are you doing? I don't know, man. It's just I understand it was a moment. I understand it was a moment that was potentially blown up by another very significant journalist.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, can we all just move on? Like, let's not get mad at somebody for being nice. I think that's the main takeaway. Let's not get mad at somebody for being nice.
This sounds like the end of a Full House episode where there should be like sad music playing in the background as Sam tells us how we all need to be nicer to each other. Okay. So tomorrow we'll talk about that. I'm more in your camp than I am the camp of trying to destroy this woman. I just think there's a time and place. This wasn't the time. As far as what she did, she should have pulled him off.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
But again, it was 19 seconds, and if that's the end of your world, with everything going on in this world right now, if that 19 seconds is the end of your world, then hey, all right, fine.
You live one hell of a life if you
really
got that much time to worry about 19 seconds.
You really do. Before we go, real quick, Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the podcast version of the show, the audio version of the show, available wherever you get your podcasts. Go and subscribe to that today. You can listen to it on your way to work, on the plane, the train, while you're on the treadmill. Also, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Subscribe to that today. We've got great content there, is where all things Sports Wrap lives, including the Monday through Friday TV version of the show. It's there before it's anywhere else. Go and subscribe to our YouTube channel today. Great stuff there, including Sports Wrap Shorts, which if you haven't checked these out yet, they're 1 to 3 minutes long, cover the top stories of the day. John Harbaugh gets hired last night. Boom, we were right there minutes after it was announced by Adam Schefter with a Sports Wrap short on it, a quick take. Go and check those out. Also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And now, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Couple of sprained ankles last night of note in the NBA. One belonging to Jalen Brunson of the Knicks, who's starting to feel like early years of Stephen Curry when he had all those ankle issues. Jalen Brunson. It feels like every time he steps on the court, oh, hold on. He just sprained an ankle walking down the stairs, I think. Always spraining an ankle, it feels like. Going to be out for the Knicks for a little while. And Cooper Flagg also suffering a sprained ankle last night in a loss to the Nuggets, Sam.
Gosh, that East it's just so tough. The Knicks are 4 games away from first place. And they're also 4 games away from the second play-in spot. Like, goodness gracious, that Eastern Conference is really jumbled up there. I know we talk about the West being very close, which it is, don't get me wrong. The West is still very close. Nothing has changed over there. But my gosh, the East is just, it is incredible how quickly, something like this could potentially derail a team. You hope that it doesn't. You
All-star
feel like
break will help.
Right. You feel, and you also, it feels like, and maybe I have a complete misread on this team, but it feels like the Mike Brown teams, while still, Mike Brown team, we haven't seen multiple of them yet, while still having its faults, is not going to be as decimated as a Tom Thibodeau team would have been by this exact same injury.
I agree.
I'm not going to slam any panic buttons on the Knicks. I think they'll still be able to tread water. Maybe they'll fall back a couple of spots, but that's not a huge deal in a very compact Eastern Conference.
Knicks still the favorites to win the East right now at plus 290. Detroit at plus 360. The Celtics at plus 410. And then the Cavaliers at 5-1. And then a drop-off to the Magic at 11-1. That's going to do it for us. I can't get to my Venus Williams-Coco Gauff story. They could play each other in the second round at the Australian Open. Oh, come on. Her first match at a slam was against Venus when she was 15 at Wimbledon. Full circle moment. I'm always rooting for the 45-year-olds out there still giving it their best. It's going to do it for us. Thanks to Bruce Beck for hanging in with us. Thanks to you, Sam. We'll see you all back here on Friday. Robert Littall with us on the show. Bye-bye.